Hi, this is Alessio. Hope you're well. So in this video, I want to talk to you about a chart. In fact, the chart of Bitcoin you can see here, and specifically the 3-day chart of Bitcoin, which many of you have been asking me about, saying, hey, Alessio, can you comment about the potential death cross going to happen very likely soon? As you can see here, a likely death cross is going to likely happen very soon this week, I think. And what does it mean for the future, for the potential returns going forward? And in fact, we'll look at the previous examples and the previous signals this has happened on Bitcoin. And I'm going to show you this data you're seeing here. What does this data say about Bitcoin? All right, guys, join me. All right, guys, welcome back. Before we talk about the specific 3-day chart of Bitcoin, indeed the 3-day death cross is likely to happen on Bitcoin potentially soon, what I would like to do first of all is play for you something very important I've been saying now to our members for several weeks since April. Here's the clip and we'll come back. That is the major risk that is facing Bitcoin right now, that this entire structure that we can see here, this entire rebound structure since January, does not, to me, look impulsive. It does not look like a typical 1, 2, 3 wave structure of an uptrend. It looks rather choppy, rather of a corrective sideways structure. If we see a break below, once again, below 39,000 and then follow through below 37K, then no. A break like that, we can see a break below this channeling structure, a break below 37K, that actually increases the risk and could increase the probability of a move back down to test the January lows, and yes, even back down to test the 30K level here. I think as long as Bitcoin remains below that resistance of 41K, approximate level there, then pressure can remain to the downside. And it's probable that we're dealing with a 1, 2, 3 situation to the downside here. In other words, this could be a likely wave 1 down, wave 2, as I've written down here in the Roman numerals here in orange. So as long as it remains below this range of resistance, 43K to 41K, and provided also we can see confirmation and follow through below 37K. If we take out 37K, then the odds increase. We're dealing with a wave 3 taking us likely lower into this support range. Yeah, between 30,500 to approximately 30K for our wave 3. All right, guys, as you heard there in the member videos, I've been saying now since April, and in fact before that, that 37K was going to be a very important and critical support for Bitcoin. By the way, that level turned out to be the lower trendline support as well of this channel, which by the way broke last week on Thursday. That was the first major clue, the first initial risk warning sign that something was changing here. In fact, that we're breaking out of this channel and we could see significantly more downside risk to the levels I mentioned, by the way, the levels that I was looking for to be tested near 30K. As you can see, it tested this level in the last 24 hours. And you may remember back in early April when Bitcoin reached this level, the 200 daily moving average, I put out a video which you probably saw, and I said getting above the 200 daily moving average was going to be important to increase the probability of a potential uptrend. Now let me just make this very clear. I'm not trying to say I got everything right. I did not. In fact, when Bitcoin reached these levels, so when Bitcoin managed to reach here and get above these prior highs, I was quite positive on Bitcoin. So I did think at the time that by breaking these levels, we're potentially resuming the uptrend. So I was wrong about that. Nevertheless, I still wanted confirmation above the 200 daily moving average, which did not come. In any case, it is what it is, and Bitcoin has now broken below this channel, below this important channel, and below the 37K important support line. And that has now pushed us down, as we mentioned, into the key support levels here. We're now back. As you can see, yeah, we've just tested the summer of 2021 lows, as you can see here, just near 31K, the level we've now reached. And I'm pretty sure the people out there who bought Bitcoin at these levels and have been holding it all the way through until now, they're probably feeling something like this.
You little bastard! He's done it again! You dirty bastard, you've done it again!
Yeah, you gotta love lead judges. All right, guys, let me take you to this chart you're seeing here. This is the 3-day chart of Bitcoin, which many have been asking me about. Many have been asking me, hey, Alessio, can you comment on the 3-day chart, specifically the 3-day death cross, which is potentially likely to happen very soon this week. As you can see here, the 3-day death cross. In other words, this is the 3-day chart of Bitcoin, and as you can see, we're potentially getting very close now to seeing the 50 simple moving average crossing below the 200 moving average, the 200 SMA, which by the way has not happened yet, but I think it's quite likely to happen likely by the end of this week. So you can see the 50 simple moving average, that's the grayish white line here, is moving down. However, you can see that the green line, the 200 moving average, is moving up. Now, if you watch my previous video on the Death Cross, which if you haven't seen it by the way, then go ahead and watch it because it's quite important. But I mentioned there's something important about the meaning of these death crosses, especially when they're moving in opposite direction. So not all death crosses are the same. They have two different flavors. And depending on which flavor you get, depending on if they're moving in the same direction or if in this case, as they're moving in opposite directions, they have different probabilities, okay? So let me just show you this. Let me, for example, show you this chart. This is a 2018 chart of the 3-day death cross on Bitcoin. So this happened back in 2018. And you can see here was a death cross in a 3-day chart. There it is on that arrow. Now notice that in the immediate short term, you see that there was quite a lot of weakness. There was some negativity and indeed quite a sharp drop in the price of Bitcoin back in 2018 after the 3-day death cross. However, notice that very soon afterwards, within the next several weeks and months, price then managed to stage a rally and indeed pretty much recovered. Here's one for you back in 2014. You can see we had a 3-day death cross right over here. Now, again, in the short term, in the immediate term, in the next few weeks, we did have quite a sharp drop, as you can see here. Yeah, the price of Bitcoin did drop quite nastily, and the spike moved lower in the immediate term. But again, notice what happened in the next several weeks and months. It did manage to eventually recover and go higher again. So here's the data. And again, I've compiled this data for you so you can actually see it much more clearly and much more objectively. So what I did was I measured what the signals are, in fact, what the signals provide in terms of returns in these kinds of windows. So 2-week window, 1-month window, 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year. Now, something very interesting I found here. First of all, it's quite important to mention this before we go any further, that we've only had 2 signals since the beginning of Bitcoin. So I went back on the 3-day chart of Bitcoin, and these are the only signals I could find. Again, one back in 2014, as I just showed you, and also one back in November of 2018. Of course, we're going to have one more pretty soon this month in May 2022, and we don't know what the returns are going to be going forward. However, what we do know objectively are these returns on Bitcoin, given the previous signals, the previous 2 signals we had, again, on a 3-day chart, again, the death cross signal on the chart of Bitcoin. Now, first of all, as you probably know, this is a very small sample size. It's a tiny sample size. Only 2 signals in the last several years going back on the 3-day chart of BTC. So I think given how such a small sample size we have here, this is not going to be very scientific and highly reliable. I would have preferred at least several more signals to give me an indication of what the likely returns are, the probabilities going forward. We only have 2. So it's not enough to be able to make a reliable judgment of what Bitcoin may do going forward. However, let's just assume that Bitcoin does repeat something similar to this. Therefore, going forward, what the results do show us is that the immediate term, the short term, again, by that I mean this window of time frame here, so 2 weeks, 1 month to 3 months, you can see that the immediate term, the short term, yeah, okay, so the returns were not very good, quite negative. Again, all of these are expressed in percentages. So the median, again, this is the median figure that you can see here. So the median is telling us that, again, in the next 2 weeks, 1 month, and 3 months, pretty much negative. It seems that the next month, the returns were the worst by the looks of things. But what is interesting, as I showed you also a few minutes ago, after you move into the 6-month to 1 year period, the results improve. So the returns actually improve, as you can see here. So after 6 months, yeah, moderately better. Almost break even, as you can see here, but the median after 1 year is 40%. Again, remember guys, this is a median figure. It's not maximum or minimum. It's a median figure. So Bitcoin may actually do better than this, or perhaps slightly lower than this. The bottom line is that what the results do show is that if we take a much more longer term perspective, a longer term view, then despite any kind of negativity, so if you're worried about the negativity, as you can see here, in the short term, in the next 2 weeks, or potentially the next month or 3 months, then I think what we can say is the results show that that negativity is short term. It's temporary. It's not going to be lasting forever. So as you can see here, again, going back to 6 months to 1 year forward, if one takes a longer term view, then this shows that after 1 year, usually Bitcoin recovers quite significantly and indeed goes back into positive. Again, the median figure is about 40%. Now, again, is this guaranteed to happen for the month of May? Absolutely not. Again, this is the unknown. We don't know actually what's going to happen going forward in the next several weeks and months, and especially 6 months to a year. But again, if history repeats itself based on these median figures, then it does show that if one takes a longer term perspective, like for example in 2014 and also back in 2018, then the probability is higher that despite any short-term negativity, whatever may happen, for example, in the next several weeks and months, then if we take a longer-term perspective, it's quite likely that Bitcoin will eventually recover by next year, again, 12 months from now. So that means it's going to require quite a lot of patience and discipline on the part of the individual, on our part. Two more things I want to say here. Again, just remember that these moving averages are at the moment moving in opposite directions. So again, watch my previous video as what the significance of that is. I prefer the death cross when they're both moving in the same direction as opposed to opposite directions. The second thing I want to say is this. Bitcoin is currently quite a bit oversold as it is, but that remains to be seen. All right, guys, hope this video has helped. Join me in the next members video, which will talk about more about the Elliott wave counts and the potential key levels on Bitcoin and also the stock markets. And if you're not a member, you can join in that link you see right there. Thank you very much indeed. Bye for now.